DJI have pulled out all of the stops with their latest tiny drone, the DJI Neo. The Neo weighs only 135 grams, so it's minuscule. So they have a 1/2 inch sensor on there, capable of capturing 4K video. Got the following mode, which I'll get into a little bit later. We've got 12 megapixel effective stills when we're capturing just those still images as well. It's got an f-stop of 2.8 and a field of view of 117 degrees. You can enable rock steady and horizon steady. So there is electronic image stabilization built into this drone. It isn't the best gimbal system on the market. So a lot of the other 3-axis gimbal systems, you can fly full speed anywhere with all sorts of wind conditions and it's going to be steady. Now, the Neo does a phenomenal job and nearly every clip that I've captured has been smooth. But just first thing to mention straight off the bat is that this is a tiny drone, so it can't handle any wind condition. It can handle level 4 winds, which is about 28 kilometer wind speeds. So if anything gets close to that, or if there are gust speeds that are over that or around that mark, you'll notice the drone will struggle a little bit. It can handle the wind, but it's the camera system. So I've noticed when I've tilted the camera down, you get a little bit of wobbling, and you got to be hyper aware of how you're actually controlling the drone. It definitely makes you a better pilot when you're using the controller, because you have to just be a little bit more intentional with your movements. And I was able to capture some buttery smooth clips with the Neo, and it did a great job in all sorts of conditions, but just keep that in mind. It's not as stable and as smooth as maybe you're used to with a more expensive drone. The fact that you can get OcuSync 4 with it and fly kilometers away is amazing. Even though it did a great job in most situations, occasionally when I was using the quick shot modes and it was relatively windy, I will say a few times it stumbled just a little bit. So firstly, when you're using the controller, you can only use the active track on a person. You can't use it on a boat or a car. I think that's a very smart thing in terms of safety for this drone, because it can only handle level 4 winds. It's not a level 5 wind ready drone like a lot of other DJI drones. So that's good that they've thought of that. And then the other thing I noticed is that with the quick shot mode, it did a good job in most situations, but sometimes, especially when I did the circle, when it just goes around one of the points local to us, I found that it would change the pin point to a location based pin, and it got the location off, and then it started going in a bit of a different direction. So it continued the path, it never lost it, but it was a little bit fiddly at times when I was using the quick shot mode. And that's again where, depending on the wind speed, you might get varied results. But across the board, I would say maybe 90% of the time, the footage was consistent, stable, and it looked amazing. Again, considering how small this drone is. Now, when we talk about battery life, these are tiny little batteries. And one of the things that a lot of people were talking about in the forums and on the different Facebook groups is they were worried that this was going to be a repeat of the Spark. It's kind of similar. I can see how they can see this as a Spark alternative, but they were worried about the battery. They were worried that it wasn't going to be a secure fit. Now, I can assure you, I've flown this in all sorts of wind conditions. It does a really good job. The battery is nice and solid. It clicks into place. There are pins that hold it there. There's a little clipping mechanism here. It's extremely secure. I had no issues with the battery being loose. So this is a very well-built drone, considering, again, it's such a small drone. From the test that I did, I was averaging just over 13 minutes to 14 minutes of battery life. You're obviously going to get different battery life depending on the conditions, how you're flying it, what mode you're in, what you're filming, all that kind of stuff. But I got about 13.5 to 14 minutes of flight time. And in one of the tests, I went from launch to the point that it had to force itself to land. And so that was about 14 minutes of flight time. Pretty good for a small system, but just keep that in mind, especially if you're going to get yourself the FlyMall kit or you're going to use one of your other controllers, because you can get huge range out of this. It's OcuSync 4, you can get kilometers of range. You have to keep in mind the battery life. That will disappear very quickly. If we're getting 14 minutes solid battery life, you don't want to be flying too far away. If you are interested in the DJI Neo, then I will have some links below to check out, and I would highly recommend checking them out. If you're based in Australia, I'll have some very unique offerings available to you. If you're wanting to go through the DJI Australia website, which is d1store.com.au, you can use the code DansTube to save on most drones, cameras, and accessories over there. Really awesome way to get all the latest and greatest from DJI if you're based in Australia. And then on top of that, if you're an international viewer, I will have some other links below, Amazon, DJI, and a few other places. So check those out. They'll all be linked below. Well worth checking out if you want to get an awesome deal on the Neo. Now, on the note of the FlyMall Combo, I highly recommend the combo for the kit that you get. So you get the controller, which is the RC N3. The Neo is compatible with the N2 as well. And you get this really cool charging hub here. Now, the thing that I love about the charging hub is that it can charge all 3 batteries simultaneously. For me, that was huge. If I'm out there testing, like can fly the drone, I can have this plugged in, charging the other two that are maybe depleted a bit. We move to another location, it's charging all three in between. And I found that I was able to get multiple locations in the same day because I could just take a power bank and keep it on charge at all times. So that was actually a huge calling card from the Neo power bank, the Flymore kit. So I highly recommend checking that out. Now let's get into some of the cool things, some of the different features, the different ways that you can use this drone. So firstly, you can use this drone without any controller at all. So this is perfect for vlogging. This is perfect for just being a standalone camera person, right? Because I don't need a controller. I can power it on. There's a few buttons on top here and I can change between modes and then just enable it. And it's just gonna launch off my palm, do its thing, straight when I'm ready for it to land, put my hand out and it will land on the palm. I don't need to worry about connecting the app or the controller or anything. I can purely just use the drone. So that's ideal when you're just wanting to capture moments, you're out and about, there's a lot of things happening. You just want to capture a few different perspectives. You can go between a few modes, get it to launch, do its thing, land on your hand, change to the next mode, and you can just capture a few different moments in the moment. So that's great. I love that. But then you have a bunch of other options. You can connect it up to the app. And then when you're in the app, you have even more control. So you can change all the different modes, all the different settings, how far it flies, the height, all the different video quality options, different modes. You've got so many different options in the app. And then you can also use manual controls. So that means that with your phone, you can use your phone as a controller. So that gives you about 30 meters of range of the video transmission feed. So be careful with that one if you are going to use your phone. It does give you the manual controls, but for whatever reason, it's in portrait mode. So you can't turn it landscape to fly it like a normal controller. You have to hold it upright. And it's a little bit clunky. I don't know if that's intentional purely because you can't fly it that far. It kind of gives you a bit of a barrier behind pushing it and flying too far, but manual controls are fine. The thing that I really love though is when you use the app, you can also record your voice. So you can enable the microphone on your phone and I can have this following me in the distance somewhere, wherever it may be, and just hold my phone and narrate whatever I'm doing. This brand new voice control feature gives us a brand new way to interact with our drone. To enable the voice control, you just have to power on the drone firstly and then connect it up via the DJI Fly app. The voice control feature works really well. It has a bunch of different options. I love that we can go into the settings and see a few more options just to prompt us as to what to do and what I can have control over. For the following mode, you put it into the following mode and then you have control to get it to go further away from you, come closer, go higher, go lower. So that's handy on the fly, especially while it's following you. If I notice that it's too close or I notice that there's something around, I need it to come in really close to me to avoid some stuff. I love that I can just do that on the fly through the voice control option. I love that I can just tell it specific, so I can get it to do a particular move, so a rocket, and I can tell it to do 6 meters or 10 meters or whatever it is I want it to do. That seems to work really well. And then you got the safety features, so you can get it to land, brake, stop. And I also got it to take off as well when I just told it to take off. It seems to be quite a reliable feature. So this is more than a gimmick. This is actually super useful, especially the fact that you can adjust the following length and height mid-flight. That's super handy. And it doesn't disrupt the recording. It doesn't start a new recording. It just seems to continue, which is very nice. So with the FlyMall Combo, you do get the DJI RC N3, but you can use the N2 as well. That gives you the OcuSync 4, so you can then get kilometers of range with a controller that you're very used to. If you've got the N2, then you can just use that. So that's where you can save a bit of money there, which is really cool. And same thing that you would expect. All the buttons work the same. The controls are very responsive. I find that this is a really good combo together, and I was able to push the drone and really test it. It did a phenomenal job. And then on top of that, you can also use the RC Motion 3 and the Goggles 3. And so they came out with the Avata 2, and it's so much fun to have motion controllers with a tiny little drone. You can do all sorts of things with it, and it's really responsive. I'm quite the fan of using that as a setup. And then we're still not done yet, because there's then the option to use it with the FPV Remote Controller 3. Luckily, I have all of these accessories and options. So if you're deeply embedded into the DJI ecosystem, you can use the Neo with so many different accessories. So I was able to fly this in full FPV. There'll be a whole standalone video on the channel. I was attempting to do barrel rolls. I did all sorts of like little low maneuvers. This was so much fun. This was literally my first ever experience of flying manual FPV out and about after using the Uncrash simulator. You can do the RC motion, you can use a controller, use your phone, use voice controls, just use the drone. That's where this stands out. Like, what other drone can do all of those things? One of the things that I noticed instantly about the Neo is the sound it makes. It's quite a loud drone. Even when it's just close to you, there's not too much wind. But even when it was in the distance, I was flying it in the distance and I could still hear it. It's got quite a unique sound to it. Even when I'm flying up pretty high in the sky, it does have a different sound to it. So just keep that in mind. It isn't the most stealthy drone in that regards. It's a very stealthy looking drone, and you don't have to have a controller and you can launch it immediately. But if you're around people, maybe some friends and whatever else, just make sure that they know that you're about to launch it, because it does make a sound. And that's also a little bit of the problem if you're close to people. You know, you want to be flying this away from people, but in a situation where they're not too far away from you, keep in mind that it will bring some attention to the drone. There are a bunch of different quick shot modes, and we do get a following mode. So the following mode is so cool. This drone doesn't have obstacle avoidance. It does have the vision positioning sensors underneath, so it can sense your hand, it can sense ground and whatnot, but no obstacle avoidance on it, which makes a lot of sense for such a small drone. So it can follow you though. So keep that in mind, because it's not aware of the obstacles. It does have the propeller guard, but it doesn't know if it's going to hit something. On top of that, we have Droney, which is a great option. We've got Circle, we've got the rocket mode, we've got Spotlight, which is kind of like just a tracking mode. It just tracks you as you're moving around. Or you can go in the full Spotlight mode if you're using the controller, which is one of the best tracking modes actually, because you draw a box around someone, so myself for example, and then from there it's focusing on me and I've got full control of the stick. So I can move it with the controller and it will just go in all sorts of directions, but it will keep me as the main focus. That does really well. I found that when I launched it just from the drone and I didn't have a controller, the Spotlight mode just seemed to be like a tracking mode. So I could walk around and it would just hover and just look with me. So that seemed to be the difference between the two when you went from the controller or the app just to using the drone. And then there's a few other custom modes as well. So we get Direction Track, which is a slightly different one. It's a bit more dynamic. It just kind of tracks you, and as you're moving directions, it will just adjust to that. That's a really cool mode. And then we get Helix and Boomerang as well. And you can use all of these modes with the drone on its own. If you want to change between the custom modes, you will have to go into the app and change to your preferred custom mode. Otherwise, it will just have the profile icon on the drone, and whatever you've set the custom mode to, that's what it will be when you just use the drone without the app or the controller. And so again, you can do all of these different modes and features with the controller or with the phone or just on its own. So much versatility here, going from the motion to the FPV controller to the RCN3 to the phone to just using the drone. I really tested that. I wanted to see how it would go jumping between the different options that I had available to me. And that's what really impressed me. It was quick and simple to swap across, very easy to navigate and use all of the different interfaces, very easy to control with all the different modes, and the drone handled it perfectly. Regardless of what I put it through, it just swapped between it and it did a great job. Now, one of my early tests when I was using the following mode along the beach was quite impressive, because some of these smaller drones, when it's purely just using the following mode, sometimes when there's a lot of change in the terrain or in the environment, the background, sometimes it can wig out a little bit. So if there's a lot of water and sand and trees and whatever else, it can struggle a little bit. Now, this guy here did a really good job. When I changed the situation, the lighting conditions changed a lot and it handled it. I even elevated, so I climbed up some rocks and it went up with me. As I went down, it went down with me. It was very responsive to everything that I put it through, and it kept itself nice and close, nice and reliable with its flight, and very easy to just land on my hand when I was ready. The internal storage on the Neo is 22 gigabytes, so you can just access all of your files through the DJI Fly app, connect it up and transfer it across to your phone or whatever other device you're using. And then you've just got a USB-C, so there's no option for added storage. You've just got to deal with the 22 gigabytes. But I find that because the files aren't huge in terms of file size, they're pretty compressed. The 4K video quality is great, but it's not really pushing the limits of the quality. So you're not getting huge file sizes, which is actually perfect for something like this. The 22 gigabytes is fine. You can plug in the USB-C, transfer it across to your computer, format it through the app or however you want to do that. And it's pretty easy to just navigate between, saving it to your phone or saving it on your computer. I feel like there's so much to talk about with this drone, and I think it's a perfect beginner drone. It's the ultimate way to just get into the drone space. It's not ridiculously expensive. You're in an ecosystem then that can give you extra control options. So if you want to learn FPV, you can with this drone. If you want to just use it as a standalone hand launching and hand catching drone, you can just do that without a controller. You can buy yourself a controller. You can buy the hub if you want to just get the drone and then you want to get the hub later. There's so many options, right? And then you got the RC motion, the goggles. And I think that this is great for people who even have, maybe a larger drone, maybe you have something that's a bit more professional, something significantly more expensive. This one is a fun drone. So that's where I think this is going to appeal to people who already have a drone as well. Obviously ideal for the beginner market, for someone who just wants to to have the perfect vlogging drone to follow them. You can talk to it, have the audio recorded to the clip. You can do all the different maneuvers and options for controls. But I think it's also great for people who have another drone and they want something fun like this. This is great to just chuck in your bag and just have a bunch of fun with. Another thing I wanted to mention is that I've got 2 exclusive Facebook groups for my audience. And one of them is the DJI Neo owners worldwide, and the other one's the DJI Neo owners Australia. If you're in Australia, that one is going to be an awesome community. There will be meetups, events, giveaways, all sorts of things for my local Australian audience. And then I'll have a general worldwide one, which will have some other unique things on there. So feel free to join both of them if you're based in Australia, and join the worldwide one if you're based anywhere else in the world. If you, your friend, your partner, your parents, whoever it may be, wants to get into flying a drone but is terrified, maybe they've just got themselves a drone and they don't know how to fly it, I do have a drone course designed for beginners to go from a novice to a pro. I will help you become a fearless drone pilot. There's everything you need in that course. It will guide you through the whole experience. Well worth checking out or gifting to a friend, partner, or loved one. fearlessdrone.academy. Using that code DansTube will save some money over there, so well worth checking it out. I'm giving away a Neo to 1 lucky audience member. And the idea of this giveaway is there will be a link below. You click on that link and it will apply a 50% off discount code for the Fearless Drone Academy. So the drone course comes under 100 Australian dollars, which is great value. And the thing that's very unique, right, is the code you'll be using is Neo50. So you get 50% off the drone course. Click that link, it will automatically apply it. Now, once you purchase the drone course, you'll go into a draw to win the DJI Neo. Now keep in mind, there aren't going to be too many people getting access to the course. So previous giveaways I've done for other drones, there have been literally tens of thousands of people entering to win a drone, and you've got a very slim chance of winning. Now, if we only get, let's say, 20 people sign up to the course with that code down below, you've got a very good chance. You've got 1 in 20 chances of winning a brand new drone. So that's a huge opportunity. You get the drone course, which is Australia's #1 drone course for beginners, and then you also get a very good chance of winning the latest DJI drone, the DJI Neo. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I definitely think this is well worth looking into if you're a beginner, or if you've got another drone and you want something for just fun. This is a great travel drone, perfect for capturing moments with friends, family, great for capturing all of your needs, especially if you've got the controller and then you just use the drone as well. And I think the video quality does a fine job. Again, not the best video quality in the world. It's not going to compare with the larger drones that you potentially have, but it does a great job. It's pretty clear. Yeah, the file sizes aren't huge, so you can save a bunch of videos on there. You can record your audio. You got some 12 megapixel still options as well. Really fun drone. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate all of your support, and I'll chat to you in the next one. Peace.